Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, October 8th. We have a very busy day in our Atlanta News First Plus studio. Our neighbors to the east of us in downtown Atlanta, this is a live shot of our beautiful city right now. We are preparing for Hurricane Milton, both indirectly and directly. Some parts of Georgia, not much, could get some of the fringe of Hurricane Milton, but it is expected to hit landfall in Florida either tomorrow or Thursday. Georgia, for the most part, is storm-free. But this, again, this is a live look in Atlanta. The weather here right now, calm, cool. But we have now become a safe haven for those who are evacuating Florida. Our First Alert weather team is tracking the storm's path of Milton. And we also have a team of reporters tonight that are scattered across the state of Georgia who are going to bring us the very latest information from both FEMA, emergency responders, as well as the Red Cross. There's a lot that we're covering here inside the Atlanta News First Plus studio. I am Shon Gables. We're glad to have you. There are a lot of people who are hurting. Our hearts go out to families who are recovered from Hurricane Helene, and now they're forced to deal with Hurricane Milton. There's a lot to go through, and like I mentioned, our hearts go out to those families who are dealing with this. Make sure you join us tonight on Atlanta News First at 11, also at 10 p.m. on Peachtree TV and on WPGA in Macon. We'll be covering this story. Tampa is one of the areas in Milton's direct path of the landfall. Let me show you some satellite imagery real quick to just give you an idea of just the path of the storm right now. It's a Category 4 storm, is expected to weaken before making landfall. I think I just overheard our First Alert meteorologist, Campagna, saying that it may have escalated in speed, maybe a Cat 5 again. He's going to be here in just a minute to just break this down for us. But Tampa's mayor has given a dire warning for those in Florida. He says either evacuate or die. That's pretty scary. And those who have decided to stay are boarding up their homes and businesses ahead of landfall. Manuel Borges reports all of this comes as thousands are still cleaning up from Hurricane Helene.
It's a race to evacuate in Florida, with Hurricane Milton closing in on Tampa Bay.
They say it's going to be biblical, so we were going to stay, but I don't want to take the chance.
Bradley Sprague had a message for his neighbors as he boarded up his home on Minnesota Key.
Get somewhere higher ground, because this is not high ground.
Residents there and in other coastal communities like Newport Richey are still working to clean up debris from Hurricane Helene.
Everything's projectile out here right now because everybody's house is on the front yard.
With Milton fast approaching, crews in the state have been using dump trucks to haul away what they can.
All day today, it's going to continue and into tomorrow until it's no longer safe to do so.
Further inland, in cities like Orlando, residents are filling bags to shore up their homes, and other Floridians are looking for a safe haven. I can tell you that the hotels in this area are all basically sold out. People are coming here with their pets, food, medication. You can imagine the same thing is happening at many of the shelters that have opened up.
This could be the worst storm hit Florida in over a century.
President Biden discussed Hurricane Milton emergency preparations from the White House.
I've spoken to all the political leaders in the region, some of them more than once. I've told them anything they ask for, they can get.
He's postponed a planned overseas trip to monitor the storm's impact. Manuel Borges, CBS News, Orlando.
And I showed you this video earlier. This is from the racetrack here in Georgia. Campgrounds are opening to evacuees and hotel rooms are filling up. Atlanta News First reporter Patrick Quinn takes us inside the mass exodus.
Where are you headed?
I don't know. There's no hotels around here. We've been looking for hotels and they're all booked.
Mary Bell, her husband, and 4 kids were among the masses moving north along I-75. We met them in McDonough after driving through the night from Bradenton, Florida.
Why was it important for you guys to leave?
Our kids, they're small and they don't know how to swim, so we decided to leave.
She wasn't alone. Georgia Department of Transportation has seen a 280% increase of traffic along I-75 into Georgia. They reversed the express lanes in Henry County to help ease the congestion. Barry Durden from north of Tampa showed us this video as he and thousands evacuated out of Florida, the flashing lights of first responders driving in to help.
It was very eerie seeing the first, of course, it was the bucket trucks, the trucks for the power, and then all of a sudden it was a lot of ambulances coming from different counties.
Barry was lucky to find a hotel for him, his wife, and dogs where they'll wait out the storm.
We just moved from this county, McDonough, where we're at now, 5 weeks ago. Moved to Florida. It's a great place. You'll have a good time. 2 hurricanes in 15 days.
Few or no hotel rooms vacant nearby the Atlanta Motor Speedway in Hampton, now open to evacuees. We saw a handful of RVs already parked out front.
We know that there's a need. We've worked with Henry County Emergency Management Agency, and they've asked us to open up.
We told Mary Bell about the Speedway. She's weighing all options. She's out of danger, but can't help feel out of place.
A little scared because we don't know if we're going to get back and have our house. I don't know. So, yeah, it's scary.
Patrick Quinn, Atlanta News First.
And our local leaders are closely watching Milton's impact on Georgia. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, he just extended the state of emergency declared during Hurricane Helene. The executive order was set to expire tomorrow. It will now go through Wednesday, October 16th. And this basically boils down to this. The state's gas tax suspension will remain until the state of emergency expires. And with 2 major hurricanes in the same region in a short time span, there's now a new spotlight on FEMA and the agency's ability to stop misinformation and adding this really to the list of disasters they now have to clean up. Atlanta News First Madeline Montgomery is going to speak with FEMA tonight. She'll have a full report tonight on Atlanta News First at 11, WPGA in Macon, and also on Peachtree TV at 10. But this is FEMA's response on how they are planning to deal with the debunking misinformation.
The reality of rumors and misinformation that have been out there are very challenging.
FEMA says false rumors about its work are making it harder to help with Hurricanes Helene and Milton. One inaccurately claims survivors only get $750 from the agency. Actually, that's just an immediate payment for things like food, water, and emergency supplies. People can apply for more, but FEMA says misinformation is an obstacle.
It's causing confusion, it's causing chaos, and people aren't able to get the help that they need because they're seeing so much information that is not true.
A different rumor falsely claims FEMA money is being diverted for other uses, like international aid.
I can assure you that no funding has been taken from the disaster relief funds.
Congress controls the agency's budget.
Obviously, big disasters like this create longer-term needs and across the federal family. We'll work on those at a later point. But for Helene and for Milton, we have the resources we need.
Another rumor alleges FEMA is limiting some efforts in North Carolina. The state's governor says that's not the case.
We have thousands of local, state, and federal officials who are working in North Carolina and who are making sure that people have what they need.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
And as Hurricane Milton heads towards landfall, our First Alert weather team will have updates hour by hour. First Alert meteorologist Fred Campagna, he's going to join us now. And Fred, this really is a good time to remind everyone to download our free Atlanta News First app for new and updated information. And I hope I did not misspeak, but Fred, I just happened to hear you talking in the newsroom right before I went on air, and it sounded as if you were mentioning that we know the storm is a Cat 4. Is it back to a Cat 5?
Yeah, can you punch my mic there? Shon,
I'm trying to do it, Fred. And
yeah, you got it.
There you go.
It is actually back to a Cat 5. So yeah, that happened earlier, 5 o'clock, and central pressure continues to lower. So none of this really is good news at all for folks living in Florida. Hopefully those that are in harm's way have evacuated. So I'm going to hop into the chair there, so to speak. And,
I'm trying to get your name to come up, Fred.
No, don't
I
worry
cannot
about my
figure that
name.
out. But I know
That's
what's
all
really
right.
important is that folks are watching us
Yeah.
and they're scared because
Yeah.
Is it normal for this to like fluctuate between a
It
Cat
is
4 and a
actually
5?
at this point, yeah. So as long we were anticipating yesterday that it would still be a Cat 5 at this time. Now, if it's still a Cat 5 at this time tomorrow, we have big problems. It should be Cat 4 or Cat 3 at that point. But why don't you pop me over and put up? There you go. Put up that Milton stuff. My name's up there, Shon. You got it all squared away. All right, awesome. I hope everybody's doing great out there this evening, and let's get going on what is coming our way. Let me see. I just popped over to the main chair. So hope you're having a good day. I will talk a lot about what's going to happen with Milton here. And for obvious reasons. One, that it's a potentially historic storm hitting in a part of Florida that just had an impact from a hurricane a couple of weeks ago, and this could be catastrophic for some folks living in that area. Some of the same people who were very heavily impacted by Ian a couple of years ago could be impacted again, talking about Port Charlotte, that area. If the storm goes a little bit farther to the south, maybe even Fort Myers, Sanibel, these are all places that had major impacts from Ian. And then you take spots like Anna Maria Island. Maybe you've seen some of the video coming out of there after Helene, which, you know, Helene brushed by there. It wasn't a direct hit, obviously. It hit much farther up the coast, but it was parallel to the coast and close enough to the coast, and it brought in enough of a storm surge that it really did cause a lot of damage in that area. And now this could be potentially more of a direct hit. I'm beginning to think that it might be even south of Anna Maria Island. So that's south of the Tampa area. So you go Tampa area, then you go Anna Maria Island, then you get down to around Siesta Key, Venice, Port Charlotte, down to Fort Myers. So the exact location is still not known, but anyone from Tampa on down to Fort Myers needs to be on high alert, in some cases evacuated ahead of this storm. So let's go back to the graphics here and start talking about Milton, which as of 8 o'clock had winds still of 165 miles an hour, but the central pressure with the storm was down to 902 millibars, so getting really, really low once again, unfortunately. All right, let's zoom in a little bit here. So as of earlier, it was 457 miles away, but now you can see the track that it's taken in the last couple of hours since I put that arrow on there. It's now probably about 420 miles away from the coast of Florida. It has a perfectly circular eye and structure to the storm. Looks like a buzzsaw going through the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico right now. It is not going to look as good tomorrow, and the reason for it's going to start to interact with a trough of low pressure that's coming in from the west that's going to help to weaken it somewhat by the time it makes landfall. But at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it is still expected to be a very strong Category 4 storm with winds of 150 miles an hour. By 2 o'clock Thursday morning, notice how it's still offshore at that point. The line that you see cutting across where the time is, Thursday 2 a.m., it is all offshore, anywhere along the cone. So this is a late night landfall for Florida, unfortunately. Really, really bad news as far as that is concerned. So terrible to think about a hurricane like this hitting, but scarier still to have it hitting at night. And it will maintain hurricane strength as it crosses central Florida. Big impacts possible in Orlando, depending on the exact track, and big impacts all the way from Daytona Beach down to Melbourne and Cape Canaveral area, all likely to see along the east coast of Florida gusts between about 60 and maybe 80 or 85 miles an hour. And a tropical storm warning goes all the way up to around St. Simon's Island in Georgia. So even there may be tropical storm force wind gusts that are happening during the day on Thursday. And this is not often that you see hurricane warnings on either side of Florida. Gulf Coast side, Atlantic side, both shaded in purple, indicating those hurricane warnings. Storm surge is going to be worse right near the eye and just south of the eye. Again, right now I'm leaning to that being around Sarasota, Siesta Key, all the way down through Venice and Port Charlotte area, possibly. The trend today with the forecast track has been a little bit farther south. Does not mean that you're in the clear if you live north of Tampa. You're going to get 10 to 15 inches of rain, some really strong winds, but you may not get the worst of the storm surge. The storm surge is going to be worse along and just south of the eye. And you may have heard us talking about the potential storm surge. I'm going to show you that graphic in just a second, but I want to start with this one to show you what a 12-foot storm surge looks like when it comes inland. And notice how that just basically covers your house in water, unfortunately. So at least the first floor of the house completely covered up there. So that is terrible to see that. And as far as the wind gusts are concerned, Tomorrow during the day, late afternoon, they start to get to near 40 miles an hour along the coast. Then they're near 50 miles an hour during the early evening. By late in the evening, they're approaching 90 miles an hour. And as we go through the overnight hours, they're somewhere between about 80 and 120, I think, for the peak gusts right along the path of this storm. Notice how strong the winds are overnight throughout the central part of Florida, between about 50 and 80 mile an hour gusts likely to Orlando, Cape Canaveral, Sarasota, all the way up to Cedar Key. Early Thursday morning, gusting over 80 miles an hour, Cape Canaveral. During the morning on Thursday, gusting really strong from Daytona Beach to Orlando and Cape Canaveral. And then thankfully, this storm is just going to move out into the Atlantic Ocean. Some computer model imagery here showing the storm on approach. Couple of things to note. Well, I've put all of the lines on there to indicate how intense it is and also give you a better idea of where the center is, at least from this particular projection. And you'll notice how most of the rain is in the northern half of the storm. So along the northern side of the storm, that's where you're most likely to get 10 to 15 inches of rain. From the eye and to the south, say 50 miles or so south of the eye, that's where you're most likely to get a really big storm surge coming in. This computer model projection has a storm going right across Tampa Bay and then across I-4. Again, some of the information that we've been seeing is a little bit farther south with the latest trend. So that's a trend that we're going to watch closely. I'm not saying it can't shift back to the north, but it is a trend. So people who live down in Venice, live in Port Charlotte, Fort Myers area, not completely in the clear or out of the woods. In fact, the trend is for the storm to come a little bit closer to you. Maybe not a direct hit Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, but enough that storm surge could be a major, major problem. 8 o'clock Thursday morning, storm crossing in the eastern part of Florida and then back out into the ocean. Notice how over North Georgia, we just have nothing going on. So the worst impacts are going to be a 10 to 15 foot storm surge, 80 to 120 mile an hour wind gusts, 10 to 15 inches of rain from Milton. It's Florida storm with a little impact in the southeastern part of Georgia. Tropical storm conditions are possible in far southeast Georgia. North Georgia tomorrow, another beauty, near 60 early, about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. It'll be 50s to around 60. By 9 in the morning, 63. Noontime, a pleasant 73, close to 80 in the afternoon. And nothing but great weather for us in this 7-day forecast. Turning cooler. Some pretty cool mornings are on the way Friday, Saturday morning. Most on Saturday morning are going to be in the 40s. It'll be right around 50 inside the perimeter. So it's a cool start, even for this time of the year. You'll know it's fall. Nice afternoon, 78 degrees on Saturday afternoon. I think the Dogs, Mississippi State in town to take on Georgia on Saturday. I believe that game's in Athens. Not 100% sure on that. And Pride is on Sunday in Atlanta, and the weather looks great for it. It does turn a little bit cooler for us early next week. So if you have friends down in Florida, check in on them. I'm sure that you have been already. Otherwise, the latest on this storm will be coming out just before our 11 o'clock newscast on Atlanta News First tonight. So check in. I'll have the very latest on the storm's intensity and its projected track. In the meantime, if you're staying local, get outside. Enjoy that beautiful weather that we have coming our way. Have a great evening.